So, the funny thing about lies and the funny thing about moral lies is that people know that they're telling them. You can look in people's eyes, and see when someone is making excuses or rationalizations for something they did that they know is wrong. I'm sure you've lived through this. It's not something, you don't have to be a scientist or a student of human existence. I'm sure your closest relatives, yourself, you've done it. You know when you're saying something that is wrong. And so people begin to understand that they have made a covenant with slavery and with death. Because obviously you cannot support freedom with lies. You can't support anything with lies. Ultimately, it collapses into its own incoherence. And so that's where you start to lose your freedom, because the lies always serve the powerful. The lies always serve the people with power. And the people with power don't want to lose their power, so they have to enforce the lies, and that is where your freedom starts to disappear. In California, Gavin Newsom, the governor and funny-haired diner out with his friends, recently signed California Assembly Bill 2098, which says this: "It shall constitute unprofessional conduct for a physician and surgeon to disseminate misinformation or disinformation related to COVID-19, including false or misleading information regarding the nature and risks of the virus, its prevention and treatment, and the development, safety, and effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines." So now the science has become so meaningless compared to the ideology that the politician decides whether or not the doctor or the surgeon should say what he believes is the truth, right? Because Gavin Newsom's medical knowledge, which is, "I want my power, please give me my power, don't take away my power," that's his medical knowledge, is going to dominate the medical knowledge of a guy who went to medical school, which is fine if he went to the University of Minnesota, because then he's wearing a witch doctor mask and he doesn't know what he's talking about. But if he went to a real medical school where they actually practice Western medicine, he is now, he is now committing unprofessional conduct for giving his medical opinion if it contradicts Gavin Newsom's. That is just absolutely wonderful. But we can't turn to the doctors either, because the doctors also want to enforce their ideas, which are also completely ideologically based. This is from well, first of all, the funny thing is the vaccine. We now know that the vaccine stuff that we were told by the politicians was all untrue. This is an amazing thing. During a hearing on the European Union's COVID-19 response, Pfizer's president of international developed markets, Pfizer, obviously one of the main vaccines, Janine Small, admitted that its vaccine had never been tested before its release to the general public on its ability to prevent the transmission of COVID. When asked by a Dutch politician and a current member of the European Parliament, Rob Roos, this is what she said. She said, "We had to really move at the speed of science to really understand what is taking place in the market. And from that point of view, we had to do everything at risk." She said, "I think Dr. Bourla, even though he's not here, would turn around and say to you himself, if not us, then who?" The speed of science is slow. That's the whole point of the speed of science. You got to test things. You have theories. The theories don't work out. You have ideas. You put the test out and the tests have to be replicated. The speed of science is slow. So what she meant is we had to move at the speed of politics. And so now remember, the politicians in California are going to determine what the doctors can say. They're going to determine what the doctors can say. But the politicians have already been shown to lie. Here's a Hannity montage showing what the politicians said about the vaccine, which was never tested to show if it would prevent transmission.
You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
Vaccines prevent getting infected, prevent getting sick, prevent your hospitalization.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real-world data.
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person. A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else.
So in California, politicians and ideologues can now enforce what doctors say about the vaccines, even though we know they lied, even though we knew they were not telling the truth. But it goes beyond this because the doctors themselves are now so drunk on this essential lie, the essential lie that there is no reality, really, that there is no spiritual reality, there is no such thing as truth. They're so drunk on this that even they want their false opinions and ideologically based non-medical opinions enforced by the law. They themselves want this. This is a Chris Rufo get. He says he found a letter. The American Medical Association, the AMA, huge medical group, Children's Hospital Association, CHA, and American Academy of Pediatrics sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland, the corrupt Attorney General, asking the department to take swift action to investigate and prosecute individuals responsible for what they alleged are increasing threats of violence against hospitals and physicians targeted for providing evidence-based gender-affirming care. There is no such thing as evidence-based gender-affirming care. First of all, gender-affirming care is a propaganda word. It is not a description of anything because you can't change your gender. It is just a theory that grows out of deconstructionism, and I'll try and talk about that a little bit more if I have time. Sexually mutilating children, if they are their parents, or some doctors are sexually confused and want to justify that confusion by cutting into the bodies of children, the FBI now has to investigate if you say, I don't think that's a good idea, and I don't think your facts support it. I want to see your science, because I can tell you there is no science saying that this is a good thing. There couldn't possibly be. There hasn't been time to do a longitudinal study. There hasn't been any evidence that people's genders can be changed. There hasn't been any evidence that your feelings about your genders have any relation to the facts. It makes me laugh because the corruption runs so deep, and corruption makes me laugh because it's so degrading to the human person. So the FBI, which has already been sent out to intimidate parents who are trying to protect their children from these sickos in the schools and from people trying to force, their sexuality on these little children who have no way of knowing any better. The FBI has already raided the homes like with SWAT-like teams and arrested at least a dozen peaceful pro-life protesters, while arresting 0 of the people who have attacked crisis pregnancy centers. And remember, 3/4 of women in crisis, something like 3/4 of women in crisis with a crisis pregnancy would prefer an alternative to abortion. So the vandals who are destroying and threatening the lives of people who run those crisis pregnancy centers, they haven't been arrested at all. But if you are pro-life and you got in an argument with somebody, the FBI will descend on your home and carry you away in handcuffs, because nonsense has to be enforced, because people are capable of making sense, and they know when they're lying, they know when they're rationalizing, they know when they're doing the wrong thing. People will be haunted all their lives by a wrong thing that they did if they do not admit it and turn to God for forgiveness. This happens all the time to all of us. All of us have these things that haunt us in the middle of the night. Some stupid thing you said when you were 15 years old, and now you're 50, and you will wake up in the middle of the night sweating, thinking, why did I do that thing? We all know it, but what they're trying to tell you is no, that's a mistake. What I'm going to enforce a false sense of things to make sure you do the wrong thing, to make sure you follow me, because that's where my power emanates from, because I've made a covenant with death, and I think I'm living in a shelter of lies. So the thing is, the things the left is saying about sexuality, about the body, about physicality are nuts, especially when you put them together. When you put all the different things they say together, as long as you're listening to one person, you might sort of nod along and think, well, that sort of makes sense. But when you put everything they say together, it makes no sense. So they say, oh, well, there are no differences between men and women. That's a social construct. Men and women are a social construct, but the differences between them are so identifiable that you should butcher your body if you have a feeling that you identify with being a woman. That's what they're actually telling you. That's their philosophy. You talk about Matt Walsh and his great work that he's doing. He's having riots at his speeches, and he made that wonderful film, What is a Woman? But the whole transgender movement is based on the idea that there's no such thing as a woman, that word is essentially meaningless and contains a construct created to keep women subjugated. This is Judith Butler. She wrote this book, Gender Trouble, which is a very central book in this whole gender confusion thing. And her whole argument is that there is no such thing as a woman, that this word is basically based on a legal concept. It has nothing to do with your internal life, because she doesn't believe really that people have an internal life that is related to reality. She believes their internal life is basically kind of a random construct. And it's all a construct of people, because all of these lies are that one lie. So now you get these people who start to say things that make absolutely no sense with all the other things that they believe, and it's hard not to notice it. Here is a doctor of psychology from Boston Children's Hospital, and now the FBI will have to investigate me because I'm sure they'll think this is a terrible thing I'm doing. This is a doctor of psychology. This is the hospital associated with Harvard University. It's Harvard's teaching hospital. Her name is Carrie McGregor. She's a doctor of psychology, and she's talking about gender confusion and what they call transgenderism. Cut 10.
So most of the patients that we have in the GEMS clinic actually know their gender, usually around the age of puberty, but a good portion of children do know as early as seemingly from the womb, and they will usually express their gender identity as very young children, some as soon as they can talk. They might say phrases such as I'm a girl, or I'm a boy, or I'm going to be a woman, or I'm going to be a mom. Kids know very, very early.
That's the Renfield laugh, which you should hear every time these people open their mouth. Because think of what she just said. Even from the womb, these sophisticated people in the womb know that what their gender is, but you can kill them because they're just a clump of cells. But they're a clump of cells that knows what their gender is. They're sitting around thinking, I'm just a clump of cells, but I think I'm a clump of cells. It's a man instead of a girl, even though when I look down, my clump of cells actually has a vagina instead of a penis. So when can you kill them? When can you kill these clumps of cells that know this about themselves, that have a fully formed sense of their own gender? When can you kill them? Well, let's not go, we can't go to doctors, right? So we have to go to politicians, because politicians now are saying that we have to check with them before we spread any kind of medical disinformation, unless it happens to be from indigenous people and we're wearing a witch doctor mask. So let's talk. I just at random. Well, I'll take the woman who's running for governor of Arizona, Katie Hobbs, for the Democrats. Cut 9.
So if an Arizona voter were to conclude from your previous answer that you do not favor any specific week limit on abortion, would they be correct?
I support leaving the decision between a woman and her doctor and leaving politicians entirely out of it.
So, in other words, she believes in infanticide. They're all of the Democrats. None of the Democrats will answer the question, what's the week, when this little clump of cells who knows what his or her gender is, but is so sophisticated that has a complete sense of what sex he is, no matter what his body is telling him, he's just a clump of cells, but he is that sophisticated. What week can you stop killing them? No week. There is no week. If the doctor says, hey, you kill him when he's 15, go ahead. But if it's misinformation about COVID, then the politicians take over, because you wouldn't want a doctor talking about COVID unless he's wearing a witch doctor mask and dancing around and boiling bats in a vat or something like that. You ask why I make heroes out of moms, because we know, they're bad moms, they're good moms, there are moms who are bad people, moms who are good people. Why do I make heroes out of moms, at-home moms? Homemaking moms. There's a piece in the Wall Street Journal this morning. It came out so late that I really couldn't include in the show. Maybe I'll talk about it next week. But it quotes studies showing how traditional gender roles improve marriage and sex lives and just about everything in your life. But I support moms because people go where their interests lie, right? If your interest lies in power, then it doesn't lie in truth. If your interest lies in materialism, then it doesn't lie in spiritual truth. But moms, their interests lie in the human, and they lie in the family. And the human and the family are the basis of all our freedoms and all our lives and all our humanity. That is why moms are the factory of humanity, not just physically, but also spiritually. It is in their relationship with their mother that people become people. That's why, why do you think these leftists wanted moms out of the house? Why do you think they were saying, oh, she's just a mom. She's just a mom. Here's a woman who is an actual insurance salesman, but she's just a mom. Here's a woman who is a real estate, but this is just a mom. Why do you think they did that? They wanted you out because if what you are supporting, which is the humanity of your children, the safety of your children, the health of your children, you are supporting something that's going to take their power away. Now, I said the FBI is intimidating them, but in fact, it's pretty hard to intimidate a mom when you're going after their children. These are getting to be like pornography to me. I mean, I find at-home moms sexy to begin with, but when they start and go fight for their kids at these school board meetings, it's getting to be like porn. I'm watching these things all the time, and here's just one from San Francisco as an example. This is the Encinitas Union School District Board. Surrounded by moms and some dads, the board sent out an invitation to a, quote, family-friendly drag show sponsored by a gender reassignment surgery center. So it's based on confusing children about their gender, so you can get the surgery, they can get the money, it's a perfect system. So a woman shows up and says, just because you put family-friendly in front of it, what makes it family-friendly? This is cut 13.
What is it about a grown man costumed in a sparkly bra with augmented boobs busting out, a leather miniskirt barely covering his twerking ass with tuck tape on his front while spreading his fish-netted legs as he writhes on the ground, grinding his groin next to a minor, family-friendly? You owe us an answer. No. And you don't get to hide by just taking something down off Peachtree and calling it a day. You owe an explanation and an apology to every parent. You all got caught with your sparkly panties down.
Love those moms. If anybody is going to save this country, it is going to be the moms, because that's where their interests lie. It lies in humanity and family is where it all begins. All the things we have, all the things we love, all the things that make us who we are, it all starts there. The lies have to go after the moms, have to go after the families, have to go after our freedoms, our morality, and ultimately they will go after our lives. Wow, that was unbelievably great, wasn't it? Yes, it was. And you want more, so like and subscribe, and also subscribe to the Andrew Klavan Podcast.